The world of Fallout has brought joy and entertainment to millions of fans, and yet its setting is one of quiet dread. Sure, mini-nuking a pack of raiders or a deathclaw can be therapeutic. But zoom out for a second. In Fallout, the world ends in nuclear fire. Cities collapse, governments evaporate, civilization fractures in an afternoon. 200 years pass. Humanity is reduced to scattered settlements and rusted ruins. It gets what looks like a clean slate, a hard reset. But as we all know,
War never changes.
And after the world ends, we don't really start over, we start rebuilding. Most people think Fallout's about nuclear war, and they're kinda right. The bombs definitely matter, so does the radiation. The apocalypse is the inciting incident. But the series doesn't linger on the explosion, it lingers on what survives it. And what survives isn't just people. When you step into the wasteland, it doesn't feel like the end of civilization, it just feels like early civilization. The nuclear winter has receded. Trade routes are forming, settlements are expanding, flags are being raised again. Humanity is not extinct, it's reorganizing. Across Fallout 3, New Vegas, and Fallout 4, the pattern's difficult to miss. Different landscapes, different factions, different aesthetics, but the same architecture underneath. Power consolidates, territory expands, resources are controlled, narratives are shaped. The wasteland doesn't drift into freedom, it stabilizes. In Fallout 3, the Brotherhood of Steel frames itself as a noble order, guardians against dangerous technology, protectors of humanity. Maybe they are, but they also decide who gets that technology, who has access and who doesn't. In New Vegas, the New California Republic promises democracy, infrastructure, taxation, regulation, the whole civilization starter kit. Caesar's Legion offers something harsher but structurally familiar: conquest, hierarchy, order through dominance. Mr. House prefers corporate autocracy with better lighting. They disagree on tone, they don't disagree on the structure. Even in Fallout 4, the Institute buries itself underground, convinced it can engineer a cleaner future through controlled experimentation. The Brotherhood returns with renewed authority, but a similar mandate.
People of the Commonwealth, do not interfere. Our intentions are peaceful. We are the Brotherhood of Steel.
And the Minutemen attempt decentralized protection of the wasteland. And the railroads out here fighting for synthetic liberation. And that's just to name a few of the factions that pop up throughout the series. They all have different aesthetics, but the same impulse. Reassert control, establish order, shape the future. Not because they're cartoon villains, but because they believe that's what civilization requires. And this is where the 1950s aesthetic stops being stylistic flair and starts carrying narrative weight. Fallout's retro-futurism isn't just visual nostalgia, it captures an aspirational memory of what the 1950s represent in the American imagination. Big houses, picket fences, chrome kitchens, smiling mascots, Vault-Tec calmly assuring you that everything is handled. A time when progress felt linear, when the future felt guaranteed, when institutions felt stable. Fallout preserves that confidence long after it has earned skepticism. The billboards are still optimistic, the jingles still cheerful, corporate slogans still promising security as if nuclear annihilation were a minor administrative hiccup. At first it's funny, then it's a little off-putting, then it's kind of revealing, because what survives the apocalypse in Fallout isn't infrastructure, it's conviction. Conviction that larger systems will fix things, that better management will prevent catastrophe next time, that if we centralize properly, organize efficiently, and lead decisively, we can perfect what we failed. No major faction is trying to invent a radical new way of living, they're refining an old one. War never changes, the series reminds us, but maybe that line isn't just about armed conflict. Maybe it's about reoccurrence. The instinct to consolidate, to expand, to administer, to believe that the next version of the same structure will finally be the correct one. Fallout isn't fascinated by the mushroom cloud, it's fascinated by what happens after the smoke clears. War never changes, and maybe, quietly, uncomfortably, neither do we. If you want the clearest example of this pattern, you don't even have to look that hard. New Vegas practically builds the argument for you. The entire game is structured around a single question. Who gets to run the Mojave? Not how do we survive, not how do we build something completely new, just who's in charge. You're not rebuilding civilization from scratch, you're deciding which blueprint gets installed this time around. If you side with the NCR, you're endorsing expansion through bureaucracy. You're helping them secure Hoover Dam, stabilizing trade routes, suppressing dissent, and extending democratic influence, whether the Mojave asks for it or not. Now, if you side with Caesar, you're strengthening an empire that believes stability requires brutality. You assassinate opposition, you weaken the NCR, and prepare the region for assimilation under a single, unquestioned authority. If you back Mr. House, you're choosing technocratic autocracy. You clear out rival factions so Vegas can remain preserved, clean, efficient, profitable, and insulated from the chaos outside the Strip. Even the independent yes-man route isn't some anarchic liberation. It's you becoming the deciding authority. You still decide to secure the dam, you still eliminate opposition, and you still consolidate power. The Mojave will be organized. The only variable is the logo. And that's why players still argue which ending is the best, not because any one is really perfect, but because each feels plausible. Each promises order, and each claims it can prevent history from repeating itself. Now, Fallout 3 is more linear in its structure, but the underlying question doesn't disappear. Yes, you're largely railroaded into working alongside the Brotherhood of Steel in the main narrative. Project Purity funnels you toward their resources, their manpower, and their solution. But even within that structure, the game constantly puts small levers in your hands. Do you sabotage the Purifier with modified FEV at President Eden's request? Do you activate it cleanly? Do you convince Autumn to stand down? You're not choosing whether civilization rebuilds, you're choosing who benefits from it. And outside the main quest, those choices compound. Megaton lives or becomes a crater. Tenpenny Tower becomes a gated utopia or a ghoul-inhabited experiment in an uneasy coexistence. Even the Brotherhood itself can splinter ideologically. Lyons' more humanitarian approach versus the Outcast's strict preservation doctrine. You're not ending the cycle, you're just nudging it a little, helping one version of order over the other. Fallout 4 makes that dynamic explicit. The main storyline isn't about survival in the wasteland, it's about selecting the institution that will define it. Speaking of institutions, if you side with the Institute and you're endorsing controlled evolution, synth infiltration, quiet replacement, a future engineered from below the surface, insulated from democratic chaos. Side with the Brotherhood and you're endorsing military supremacy over technology. The Pridwin isn't subtle, it's a flying thesis statement. Order will be enforced. You side with the Railroad and you're prioritizing liberation. But even that requires secrecy, coordination, hierarchy. It's resistance structured like a government in waiting. Even the Minutemen, the most grassroots of the operation, eventually become centralized under you. Settlements align, artillery gets built, supply lines swarm, a general is appointed. No matter which route you choose, the Commonwealth does not drift into decentralized harmony. It reorganizes, and you are the mechanism. That pattern extends beyond player choice into the broader world of Fallout, including the television series. The Vaults weren't designed to simply preserve humanity, they were designed to test it. Corporate executives debating contingency plans, social experiments framed as salvation, contracts signed under the promise of stability. The apocalypse is dramatic. The management of it's procedural. Across the games and the adaptation, the world ends, but someone always steps forward to direct what comes next. Sometimes it's a general, sometimes it's a technocrat, sometimes it's a courier with a platinum chip. The question isn't, how do we avoid another war? It's who gets to shape the next society. And Fallout's answer, quietly and repeatedly, is this. Whoever believes they can control it better this time. That's the cycle. That's the repetition. And that's why the series doesn't play like a simple warning about nuclear annihilation. It plays like a meditation or an institutional memory. Or maybe more precisely, institutional amnesia. What makes this interesting isn't just that the factions mirror each other, it's that the games never actually let you escape the pattern. At no point are you offered a clean dismantling of power. You're never asked whether civilization should reorganize at all. You're asked who should oversee it this time around. And that distinction matters, because underneath all of this, the flags, the armor, the speeches, there's something older than ideology. Tribalism. Not in the caricature sense, in the evolutionary sense. Humans organize into groups. We align, we signal loyalty, we define who are insiders and who are the outsiders. It's how we've survived long before we had nations or corporations. And Fallout seems to understand that instinct. When you step into the Mojave or Capital Wasteland or Commonwealth, you don't just see factions. You see tribes with branding. The NCR has uniforms and a flag. The Legion has iconography and a ritual. The Brotherhood has rank and insignia. The Institute has sterile corridors and access levels. They aren't just political entities, they're identities. And the player is constantly invited to join one, to wear the armor, to earn the reputation, to see the world through the faction's moral framework. That's the benefit of tribalism: belonging, clarity, shared purpose. The wasteland is chaotic: radiation storms, raiders, item scarcity. A tribe offers insulation from that chaos. Structure feels like safety. The Brotherhood gives you mission parameters. The NCR gives you civic rhetoric. The Institute gives you intellectual certainty. Even the Minutemen give you something simple and powerful: community defense. There's comfort in that, and Fallout never pretends there isn't. But tribalism has a shadow. Once you belong somewhere, someone else becomes other. Resources become territorial. Disagreements become existential. The Mojave isn't burning because no one organized. It's burning because everyone did. Every group believes its structure is the stabilizing force. Every group believes the others are stabilizing variables, and the player participates in that division. Reputation systems track who likes you and who doesn't. Quests lock out depending on your allegiance. Armor changes how NPCs respond. The world rearranges itself around your chosen loyalty. You don't just observe tribalism, you enact it. That's why the endings in New Vegas feel so personal. You're not choosing the abstract governance models, you're choosing who's going to be your people. Fallout 3 does it more subtly, but it's still there. Megaton versus Teppenny Tower isn't just a moral choice, it's siding with one community's survival over another's vision of order. In Fallout 4, settlements literally link together under your banner. Supply lines reach across the Commonwealth like veins. You build a network. It feels productive, and it feels constructive. And it also reinforces the idea that stability flows outward from centralized affiliation. The apocalypse doesn't eliminate tribalism, it compresses it, strips it down to its essentials: food, water, territory, security. And from those essentials, tribes form again, just with better logos. This is where the repetition stops feeling accidental and starts feeling more human. Tribalism is efficient, it accelerates cooperation. It creates rapid trust within the group, and it also narrows empathy. It justifies expansion. It makes compromise look like weakness. Fallout doesn't condemn that instinct outright, it dramatizes it. The wasteland becomes a sandbox where humanity's oldest survival mechanism rebuilds itself using modern aesthetics. Armor instead of animal skins, energy weapons instead of spears. But the psychology isn't new. And war never changes. And maybe neither does the urge to belong to something powerful enough to survive it. There's a line in the television series where Bud Askins casually asserts that the future of humanity is management. It's delivered almost offhandedly, not as a threat, not as a manifesto, but more like a conclusion. And that sentence feels like it could sit quietly underneath the entire Fallout franchise. Because what is every major faction doing if not managing? Managing territory, technology, populations, risk. Not reinventing humanity, just administering it. Vault-Tec understood this long before the bombs fell. The vaults weren't built just to preserve life, they were built to regulate it. Control group sizes, control food supply, control social conditions, introduce variables, monitor the outcomes. Humanity reduced to a spreadsheet with breathing columns. And what's striking isn't just the cruelty of that design, it's the confidence. The belief that survival isn't about cooperation or reinvention, it's about oversight, about optimizing variables, about designing people into predictable outcomes. Bud's statement doesn't sound like a villain speech, it sounds like a boardroom strategy, and that's what makes it so aligned with Fallout's larger pattern. The apocalypse doesn't erase managerial thinking, it validates it. The wasteland becomes one giant project, a territory to stabilize, a population to oversee, a system to refine. The Institute manages humanity genetically. The NCR manages it bureaucratically. The Brotherhood manages it militarily. Mr. House manages it corporately. Vault-Tec managed it experimentally. Different aesthetics, same premise. The future isn't freedom, it's administration. And maybe that's the quiet irony at the center of Fallout. For a series built around nuclear annihilation, it isn't obsessed with the destruction. It's obsessed with the oversight. With the idea that if someone, the right someone, is watching closely enough, planning carefully enough, structuring efficiently enough, the next collapse might be prevented. But war never changes. and neither does the belief that this time, with better management, we can control it. And Fallout never fully condemns that belief. It just keeps asking who gets to hold the clipboard. If Fallout shows us anything, it's this. Management isn't going away. The wasteland doesn't drift into permanent chaos. It reorganizes, it appoints leadership, it redraws borders, and it drafts new policy. The new variable is who's in charge when it happens. And that's where the series quietly shifts the weight back onto you. Because in every major entry, you are eventually handed influence. You decide which faction gets the dam. You decide who controls the purifier. You decide which institution survives the Commonwealth. You don't get to opt out of management. You get to select it. And that's a subtle but important difference. Fallout doesn't offer a fantasy where power disappears. It offers a fantasy where you participate in directing it. It simplifies the world. Once you align with a faction, the moral landscape sharpens. Allies become obvious, enemies become justified, complexity flattens into strategy. And Fallout makes the alignment rewarding. Perks unlock, dialogue shifts, reputation improves, armor changes how people look at you. Belonging has its benefits, but it also narrows your perspective. If the series has one quiet warning buried beneath the satire and retro-futurism, it might just be this. Be careful who you hand your clipboard to. Be careful how quickly you decide your side is the refined version, because every faction in Fallout believes it's the corrective one. The smarter rebuild, the improved iteration, and they all inherit the same instinct: to manage. War never changes, but neither does the urge to centralize, to organize, to believe that this time, under this banner, with this leadership, the structure will finally hold. Fallout isn't cynical about that instinct. It's observant. It doesn't scream that humanity is doomed. It simply shows us what we do when given another chance. We rebuild, we realign, we appoint. And maybe the uncomfortable part isn't that management always returns, it's that we're usually eager to help.